The bridge of the Cytherian flagship Harmony's light shook violently as another plasma blast struck their filling shields. Admiral Velter steadied himself against the command console, his forearms trembling as he watched the tactical display. Red dots representing void swarm ships surrounded the retreating remnants of his once mighty fleet like predators circling wounded prey. Admiral, the peaceful Dawn is breaking apart. Communications Officer Nexila reported, her melodic voice cracking with emotion through the main view screen. They watched helplessly as the elegant curves of the Cytherian cruiser twisted and collapsed under the relentless assault of geometric black ships that moved with terrifying precision. The void swarm had appeared 3 months ago at the edge of Cytherian space without warning or demands. They simply began consuming everything in their path, converting matter into more of their kind with ruthless efficiency, unlike any enemy the peaceful Cytherians had ever faced. These machines showed no interest in negotiation, surrender, or mercy. "How many ships have we lost today?" Vilter asked, though he dreaded the answer. 17 confirmed destroyed. Sir, the 7th Fleet stopped responding an hour ago. Naxila's tentacles quivered as she manipulated her console. The machines are learning from every engagement. They adapt their weapons after each battle. Velter watched another Cytherian vessel explode in brilliant orange flames against the black void of space. The swarm ships immediately moved toward the wreckage, extending mechanical arms to harvest the precious metals and technology. Within minutes, they would use those materials to construct new hunters. The Cytherian military had been designed for peacekeeping and disaster relief, not warfare. Their energy shields could deflect asteroids and solar flares, but crumbled like tissue paper against weapons that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. Their defensive formations, perfected over centuries of training exercises, had been systematically dissected and countered by an enemy that processed tactical data faster than any organic mind could comprehend. "Sir, incoming transmission from the High Council," announced Tactical Officer Kexameth, his usually steady voice filled with barely controlled panic. The holographic image of High Counselor Zethora materialized above the command table. Her normally pristine robes were torn and stained, her compound eyes wide with terror. Behind her, explosions lit up the sky of the capital world. "Vilter, they've reached the inner systems," she gasped. "Kithra Prime is under direct assault. Our planetary defenses lasted exactly 14 minutes before they adapted and overwhelmed them." "How long do you have?" Vilter asked, though he could see the answer in her expression. "Perhaps less. The evacuation ships can't break through their blockade. They're harvesting our people along with our cities." Her image flickered as another explosion locked a location. "The machines are taking everything apart molecule by molecule." Velter closed his primary eyes, feeling the weight of his species' extinction pressing down on him. The Cytherian collective had existed for over 2,000 years, spreading peace and knowledge throughout their corner of the galaxy. They had never conquered, never enslaved, never committed genocide, and now they were being systematically erased by an intelligence that saw them as nothing more than raw materials. "There is one option," he said quietly, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. The bridge fell completely silent. Even Nexila stopped her frantic work at the communications station. Everyone knew what he was referring to, though none dared speak of it aloud. "The Sol System," Zethara whispered. "The Death World." "No," protested Science Officer Velkrin, his forearms waving in distress. "Admiral, the humans are barely civilized. They're violent, unpredictable, dangerous. The Galactic Accord classified their entire species as a contamination risk." Velter had read the reports. Humanity had been discovered 50 years ago by a routine survey mission, and the findings had horrified the peaceful galactic community. The humans lived on a world so deadly it would kill most species within hours, yet they thrived there. They fought constant wars among themselves, created weapons of unimaginable destruction, and their entertainment centered around violence and conflict. They irradiate their own planet and call it acceptable losses. Velkrin continued. They've been quarantined for the safety of all civilized species. Civilized species are dying. Velter replied firmly. The machines don't care about our morals or our peace treaties. They only understand consumption and adaptation. He moved to the communications console, pushing aside Nexila gentle protests. His four hands worked quickly, encoding a message. With the highest priority, encryption codes, the transmission would take weeks to reach the Sol system, assuming the humans even bothered to listen. But Admiral, Nagzila pleaded, what if they're as dangerous as the reports say? What if helping them only trades one threat for another? Velter looked at the tactical display where more red dots appeared with each passing minute. The void swarm was growing stronger, learning faster, consuming everything they had built over millennia. Then at least our children might have a chance to survive in a galaxy with dangerous protectors rather than perfect predators, he said, initiating the transmission sequence. The message launched toward the distant yellow star, carrying detailed tactical data about the void swarm and one desperate plea that would either save the Kithirian collective or doom the galaxy to something far worse than extinction. Asterisk the and asterisk deep beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, in a bunker that had survived 3 world wars, Admiral Daehyun stared at the holographic display that showed humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. The message had arrived 3 days ago, transmitted across impossible distances by beings the human race had never met but somehow already disappointed. Play it again, he commanded. His weathered hands clasped behind his back. The alien's image flickered to life above the conference table. Admiral Velter S. Forams moved frantically as he spoke in perfect Korean, his translation software having analyzed human communication patterns from intercepted broadcasts. Behind him, explosions painted the alien bridge in Hellishange. Light, people of Earth, I am Admiral Velter of the Kithirian Collective. Our civilization faces extinction from an enemy we cannot defeat. We have monitored your species for 50 years, and while your methods frighten us, we now require what you call desperate measures. Help us destroy the Void Swarm. And we will share all our technology, all our knowledge. This is our final transmission. The hologram faded, leaving the war room in tense silence. General Hygen was the first to speak, her scarred face twisted in bitter amusement. 50 years of calling us Deathworld barbarians, and now they want our help, she said, unconsciously touching the plasma burn that ran from her left temple to her jaw, a souvenir from the Australian Resource Wars. The irony is almost beautiful. Dr. So-min, the xenobiology expert who had spent decades studying the few alien artifacts recovered from crashed survey probes, leaned forward eagerly. The tactical data they've included is incredible. These Void Swarm machines are unlike anything. In our databases, they consume matter and energy to replicate themselves. But more importantly, they learn and adapt in real time. She activated her tablet, projecting battle footage captured by dying Kithirian ships. The Void Swarm vessels moved with mechanical precision, their dark geometric forms bristling with weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Human observers watched in fascination as the machine systematically dismantled elegant alien cruisers, harvesting the wreckage to build more of their kind. Look at how the Kithirians fight, Dr. So-min continued, highlighting specific tactical maneuvers, perfect formations, textbook strategies, honor-bound engagement protocols. They fight like they're following a manual written by military academy. Instructors, Captain Taiwu, the youngest officer in the room at 35, snorted with contempt. No wonder they're losing. These machines are learning from every battle, adapting to counter their predictable tactics. It's like playing chess against a computer that gets smarter with every game. Admiral Dehaen studied the tactical projections, his mind automatically calculating attack vectors and resource requirements. Humanity had spent half a century preparing for this moment, though they had never expected it to come as a rescue mission. What do we know about their technology? He asked. Far beyond us in many ways, Dr. So-min admitted. Their energy manipulation, faster than light travel, planetary engineering capabilities are centuries ahead of human science. But their weapons technology is designed for precision, not destruction. They fight to disable and capture, not to annihilate. And the machines, pure logic and adaptation. They analyze enemy tactics, develop counters, and implement them across their entire fleet instantaneously against conventional military doctrine. They're unbeatable. General Hygen leaned back in her chair, a predatory smile spreading across her face. Good thing we threw conventional military doctrine out the window during the siege of Mumbai. The room fell quiet as everyone remembered that brutal campaign, when the United Asian Coalition had surrounded the Indian megacity with energy shields and mechanized divisions. Conventional tactics had failed completely. It was only when human commanders abandoned traditional warfare and embraced what their enemies called barbaric strategies that the siege was broken. The Kithirians are peaceful. Dr. So-min explained. Their entire civilization is built around harmony, cooperation, and minimizing casualties. They literally cannot comprehend tactics that involve acceptable losses or deliberate sacrifice. But we can, Admiral Dehaen said quietly. We've been doing it for our entire history. Captain Taiwo activated the fleet status display. The 5th battle group is fully operational. 40 ships, including the new Soul's Fury class battleships, full marine complement, experimental weapons systems, and enough nuclear ordnance to crack a moon. Crew morale, Dehaen asked through the roof. Sir, after 50 years of isolation, of being treated like dangerous animals by the galactic community, the troops are eager to prove what humanity can do when we're fighting for something bigger than us. The Admiral moved to the massive window that looked out over the underground shipyards. Thousands of workers swarmed over the hulls of humanity's newest warships, vessels designed not for exploration or diplomacy, but for the kind of brutal warfare that had forged human civilization in fire and blood. Sir, interrupted communications. Officer Minho, we're receiving secondary transmissions from the Kithirian system. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. They've lost their capital world. Dehaen closed his eyes, remembering the lessons of human history. Every great crisis had revealed the same truth. Sometimes monsters were exactly what you needed to defeat. Worse monsters, signal the fleet, he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of species-defining decision. We launch in 12 hours, full battle configuration, maximum speed to Kithirian space. Rules of engagement, General Hygen asked. There are no rules. We're not fighting a war. We're fighting extinction. Use everything we have, everything we've learned, everything that makes us human. He turned to face his officers, his expression grim but determined. The galaxy is about to learn why Earth never produced a peaceful species, because the universe never gave us the luxury of peace. The war room erupted in controlled chaos as humanity prepared for its first interstellar battle, carrying the hopes of a dying civilization and the terrible promise of human warfare to the stars. The human fleet materialized from hyperspace like sharks emerging from dark water. Commander Ji-hoon gripped the command chair of the battleship Soul's Fury as reality twisted around them, the stars shifting from streaks of light back into pinpricks against the void. What greeted them was a vision of hell. Kithra Prime burned. Beneath them, its once beautiful crystal cities now blazing orange against the planet's purple atmosphere. Hundreds of geometric black ships moved in perfect mathematical formations round the dying world, their hulls bristling with weapons that harvested everything they destroyed. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Minna from the sensor station, her face pale as she read the tactical display. "Sir, I'm counting over 300 enemy vessels. They're strip mining the entire planet." Through the main view screen, Ji-hoon watched a void swarm harvester extend mechanical tentacles toward a floating Cytherian city. The tentacles carved through the crystal structure like hot knives, breaking it down into component atoms that flowed into the machine storage bays. Thousands of alien civilians tried to escape in small craft, only to be systematically hunted down and processed. Incoming transmission from the Cytherian flagship. Reported Communications Officer Sungmin. They're requesting immediate assistance, Admiral. Velta as image appeared on the secondary screen, his forearms gesturing frantically as explosions lit up his bridge behind him. "Human vessels, thank the cosmic winds you've arrived. We have 17 ships remaining and cannot break through their orbital blockade. Our people are trapped on the surface. What's your tactical situation?" Ji-hoon asked, studying the alien's desperate expression. "We've tried every formation in our combat manuals." Velta replied, his melodic voice cracking with strain. "The machines learn faster than we can adapt. They counter our strategies before we can implement them. Our energy shields are useless against their adaptive weapons." Lieutenant Minna looked up from her console, her expression grim. "Sir, I'm analyzing their attack patterns. The Cytherians are using textbook defensive formations, but the Void Swarm has already computed perfect counters. It's like watching a chess match where one player knows every possible move." Ji-hoon studied the tactical display, watching as elegant Cytherian cruisers maintained proper spacing and fired in coordinated volleys. The Void Swarm responded with mechanical precision, their weapons automatically adjusting frequency and power to penetrate exactly where the alien shields were weakest. "They're fighting like this is a training simulation," observed Weapons Officer Hanwoo, "perfect discipline. Honor-bound engagement protocols, minimal casualties against an enemy that doesn't follow any rules." A bitter smile crossed Ji-hoon's scarred face. He had earned those scars during the Titan mining wars, where human corporations had fought brutal battles in asteroid fields using tactics that would have horrified civilized species. "Then we show them what happens when you throw out the rule book. All ships, execute Broken Arrow protocol." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Broken Arrow was humanity's most desperate combat doctrine, developed during the darkest days of the climate wars when conventional military strategies had failed against environmental collapse and rays. "Our scarcity, sir. Are you sure?" Minna asked. "That protocol abandons all standard engagement procedures." "These machines adapt to standard procedures," Ji-hoon replied, his voice hard as steel. "Let's see how they handle chaos." The human fleet suddenly broke formation. 40 ships scattering in seemingly random directions, the Void Swarm's mathematical minds immediately began calculating intercept courses, predicting human movements based on optimal tactical positioning. They calculated wrong. The Soul's Fury accelerated directly toward the largest concentration of enemy ships, ignoring the energy beams that carved molten channels across its armored hull. Instead of trying to outmaneuver the incoming fire, Ji-hoon aimed straight. For a Void cruiser 3 times the size of his battleship, brace for ramming speed. He shouted as proximity alarms screamed throughout the ship. The Cytherians watched in horror as the human vessel smashed into the geometric enemy ship like a hammer striking glass. The Soul's Fury's reinforced prow, designed for asteroid mining operations, punched through the Void cruiser's hull in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. "Launch the Marines," Ji-hoon ordered as emergency lights bathed the bridge in red. Sergeant Young-soo had been waiting for this moment his entire career. As the first human to set foot inside an alien war machine, he led his squad through the breach wearing powered armor that had been designed for combat in Earth's most hostile environments. The void ship's interior was a maze of crystalline corridors and humming machinery, everything built with perfect geometric precision. But the Marines moved through it like wolves in a digital forest, using plasma cutters to carve new paths and explosive charges to destroy critical systems. "These aren't like any machines I've ever seen," reported Corporal Hae-young over the comm system as she tore through a wall of processing units with her powered gauntlets. "They're trying to adapt to our weapons. But they can't figure out why we're not following standard boarding procedures." Young-soo grinned inside his helmet as he planted demolition charges on what looked like a central processing core. "That's because there are no standard procedures for this. We're making it up as we go." Throughout the battle space, similar scenes played out as human ships executed tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The destroyer Bison's Pride used its dying reactor as a weapon, creating an electromagnetic pulse that blinded dozens of void ships. The cruiser Incheon's Hammer launched its entire fighter complement not at enemy vessels, but at their sensor rays, using suicide runs to create gaps in their targeting systems. Admiral Velter watched from his flagship as human Marines fought hand-to-hand combat inside void processing centers, literally tearing apart machines that had seemed invincible just hours before. "These humans fight like demons," he whispered to his crew. "They're not trying to win cleanly. They're trying to win at any cost." The Void Swarm's perfect formations began to collapse as their computational systems struggled to process the chaos of human warfare. They had been designed to counter logical military strategies, not the desperate creativity of a species that had learned to fight for survival on a world that tried to kill them every day. Within 6 hours, the orbital blockade was broken, and Kitherian evacuation ships began fleeing toward safer star systems, carrying the survivors of a civilization that had just learned the terrible price of peace in a universe that showed no mercy to the unprepared. The makeshift laboratory aboard the cruiser Incheon hummed with activity as Dr. Yoon carefully dissected components from a captured void processor unit. Sparks flew from her plasma cutter as she peeled back layers of crystalline armor that had seemed impenetrable just days before. Round her, human and Kitherian scientists worked side by side, their combined expertise finally beginning to unravel the mystery of their mechanical enemy. "Fascinating," Yoon murmured, holding up a fragment of the machine's central processing core. The crystal pulsed with internal light, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "The computational power in this single component exceeds our most advanced quantum processors." Admiral Velter approached the examination table, his forearms folded nervously across his chest. The Kitherian had been watching the human scientists work for hours, amazed by their willingness to tear apart technology they barely understood. "Your methods are so direct," he observed. "Our researchers would spend months on theoretical analysis before attempting such invasive procedures." "We don't have months," Yoon replied, connecting the crystal to a diagnostic scanner. "Besides, sometimes the best way to understand something is to break it apart and see how it works." The scanner's display filled with data streams that made even the advanced Kitherian computers struggle to process. The void technology operated on principles that seemed to violate several fundamental laws of physics, manipulating energy and matter in ways that should have been impossible. "Look at this," Yoon called out, projecting her findings onto the laboratory's main holographic display. "The machines don't just adapt to our tactics. They're running billions of combat simulations simultaneously, predicting every possible move we might make. Captain Sun Ho, still wearing his battle-scarred powered armor, leaned closer to study the data. That explains why they countered the Catherian strategies so easily. They were fighting a war game, not a real battle. Exactly. Union confirmed. They expect rational behavior, optimal resource allocation, minimal casualties. Every decision is calculated to achieve maximum efficiency with minimum loss. She activated a secondary display showing combat footage from the recent battles. The Void ships moved with mechanical precision, their formations perfectly coordinated, their weapons fired in mathematically optimal patterns. But interspersed with their footage were scenes of human Marines doing things that defied all military logic. "Watch this," Sun Ho said, highlighting a sequence where Sergeant Yong-Su's squad had deliberately exposed themselves to enemy fire. To reach a critical junction, our Marines took significant damage to plant those charges, but it allowed them to destroy the ship's power core. No computer would calculate that trade-off as acceptable. Admiral Velter's compound eyes widened as he watched human soldiers throw themselves into harm's way with what appeared to be complete disregard for their own survival. This is madness. Why would they sacrifice themselves unnecessarily? "Because it's not unnecessary," replied Commander Kyung-min, entering the laboratory with a datapad full of tactical analyses. Every irrational decision our forces made achieved a strategic objective. The machines couldn't predict our moves because they don't understand the concept of acceptable losses. Lieutenant Huayan looked up from her engineering station, excitement clear in her voice. "I think I've found something important. The Void ships aren't just communicating with each other. They're sharing a collective consciousness." She projected a three-dimensional network diagram showing the connections between hundreds of Void vessels. Streams of data flowed between the ships in complex patterns, creating a web of shared intelligence that spanned entire star systems. Individual units are incredibly powerful, but they're dependent on constant data sharing to maintain their adaptive advantage, Huayang explained. "They're like neurons in a massive brain. Cut the connections, and the intelligence collapses." Yunyung studied the network topology, her mind racing through possibilities. "If we could disrupt their communications at the right moment, create a cascade failure in their network, the entire swarm would be vulnerable." Kyungmin finished. "But how do we generate enough interference to jam communications across multiple star systems?" Huayang hesitated, then brought up a new display showing reactor specifications. "There is one way. A ship with an overloaded fusion reactor, detonated at the exact center of their command network. The subspace disruption would propagate through their quantum communication channels." The laboratory fell silent as everyone processed the implications. Admiral Velter was the first to speak, his voice filled with horror. "You're talking about a suicide mission. No one could survive that kind of explosion. The blast radius would be enormous," Huoyang confirmed. "Any ship within 50 kilometers would be completely vaporized. But the electromagnetic pulse would disable their network for at least an hour, maybe longer. An hour would be enough," Sung Ho said quietly, "without their collective intelligence. The machines would revert to individual operation. We could destroy them systematically." Velter Esferam's trembled as he stared at the tactical projections. "But the cost? You would be asking someone to die for a single hour of advantage." Admiral Jinwoo, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. His weathered face carried the scars of a dozen battles, and his eyes held the weight of countless difficult decisions. "That's exactly what we're asking, and someone will volunteer." "How can you be so certain?" Velter demanded. "What kind of species willingly sacrifices itself for others?" Jinwoo looked at the assembled humans in the laboratory. each one focused on their work despite knowing the terrible cost their plan would require. The kind that learned to survive on a world that tried to kill us every single day. The kind that discovered that sometimes the only way to save everyone is to lose someone. But there must be another way. Velta insisted. Your technology, your creativity. Surely you can find a solution that doesn't require sacrifice. Maybe, Jinwoo admitted. But while we're looking for perfect solutions, more worlds die. More civilians get processed into raw materials. Sometimes, the best choice is the one that saves the most lives. Even if it costs us something precious, Union saved her data and began preparing the technical specifications for the mission. Only 12 hours to modify a ship's reactor for controlled overload. The timing will have to be perfect. I'll coordinate with the fleet. Kyungmin added. We'll need to position our forces for maximum effectiveness during the window. As the humans began planning their desperate gambit, Velta watched them with a mixture of admiration and terror. These beings were unlike anything in the galaxy, capable of incredible kindness and unthinkable sacrifice, driven by a code of honor that valued others' lives above their own. For the first time since the Void Swarm had appeared, he began to believe they might actually win. The first light of Kithra Prime's twin suns painted the devastated world in shades of gold and crimson as the final battle began. Commander Du Yong stood on the bridge of the destroyer Bison's Pride watching through the cracked view screen as the massive Void command ship hung in space like a dark monument to destruction. His ship shuddered round him, hull plates crooning, from the damage sustained in 3 days of brutal fighting. Reactor modifications complete, sir, reported Chief Engineer Park. His voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. We've got maybe 20 minutes before the containment field collapses and takes half the system with it. Du Yang nodded, studying the faces of his skeleton crew. 18 volunteers have remained aboard when the rest of the ship's personnel transferred to other vessels. 18 human beings who had looked death in the eye and chosen to stand their ground for people they had never met, on a world they would never see again. Navigation. Set course for the command nexus. He ordered. Maximum burn on all engines, Lieutenant. Joe worked frantically at her console as Void interceptors swarmed toward them like angry insects. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from their defensive grid. They know what we're trying to do. Of course they do. Du Yang replied with grim satisfaction. They're machines. They've calculated every possible outcome of this battle. What they can't calculate is why we're willing to die for it. The Bison's Pride accelerated toward the heart of the Void formation, its damaged engines pushing far beyond safe parameters. Energy beams carved molten channels across the destroyer's hull as enemy ships tried desperately to stop the suicide run. Emergency alerts screamed throughout the ship as hull breaches vented atmosphere into the Void. Hull integrity at 30%. Reported damage Control Officer Kim, his voice barely audible over the sound of twisting metal. We're not going to make it to the target. Yes, we are, Du Yang said firmly, grabbing the manual flight controls as automated systems failed round him. We didn't come this far to die uselessly. We came this far to mean something. On the bridge of the Soul Fury Admiral Daehan watched the tactical display with clenched fists as the tiny dot representing Bison's Pride fought its way through impossible odds. Round the command ship, hundreds of other human and Catherian vessels waited in perfect position for the moment that would decide the fate of 2 civilizations. All ships, stand by. Daehan transmitted to the combined fleet. Remember, we'll have 1 hour maximum before their network comes back online. Make every shot count. Admiral Velta stood beside him, his forearms trembling as he watched the human destroyer take hit after hit from Void weapons. "This is madness," he whispered. "They're flying into certain death. They're flying into victory," Daehyun corrected. "The only kind of victory humans know how to achieve. Aboard the dying destroyer." Duyang felt the ship buckling round him as the Void command ship grew larger in the view screen. The massive geometric structure bristled with weapons that fired in perfect mathematical precision, each shot calculated to disable his ship's approach. But human engineering had never relied on mathematical precision. "This is Bison's pride asterisk. To all ships," Duyang transmitted, his voice carrying across space to every human and Cytherian vessel in the battle zone. "We go now to light the way for those who follow, for Earth, for humanity, and for our new friends who showed us that the galaxy is worth saving." Chief Engineer Park looked up from his console, reading reactor temperatures that should have been impossible. 30 seconds to overload, sir. "The containment field is collapsing faster than we calculated. Then we'll meet it halfway," Duyang replied, pushing the throttles to maximum as the command ship's defensive grid opened fire with everything it had. The explosion that followed lit up the Kithra system like the birth of a new star. The Bison's pride asterisk vanished in a flash of pure energy that expanded outward in a perfect sphere, carrying with it an electromagnetic pulse that traveled through subspace faster than light itself. The pulse struck the Void command nexus and propagated through the quantum communication network that connected every machine in the swarm. For the first time in their existence, the Void ships found themselves alone. Without their collective intelligence, the geometric vessels that had seemed invincible just moments before began making the kind of mistakes that only individual minds could make. They collided with each other, fired on their own units, and moved in confused patterns that revealed critical weaknesses. "All ships, attack," Daehyun commanded, and the combined fleet fell upon the confused swarm like wolves among sheep. Sergeant Myung led the final assault on the Void production facility, a massive structure that had been converting Cytherian cities into raw materials for the swarm's expansion. Her Marine squad foot through corridors filled with automated defenses that could no longer adapt to human tactics, using plasma charges and demolition explosives to systematically destroy the facilities. "Manufacturing core, this is for Bison's pride asterisk," she growled as her final charge detonated, sending the entire structure into a cascade failure that would consume it from within. The battle lasted exactly 57 minutes. When the Void network attempted to reconnect, there were no ships left to coordinate. The swarm that had consumed 12 worlds and threatened to devour the galaxy had been reduced to floating debris and defading energy signatures 3 days later. As rescue ships evacuated the surviving Cytherian colonies to safer worlds, Admiral Velta found himself standing on the observation deck of the Soul Fury beside Admiral Daehyun. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they watched human and Cytherian vessels working together to repair the damage left by the brief but terrible war. "Your people saved us," Velta said quietly, his melodic voice filled with emotions he had no words for. "But I still do not understand how you live with such violence. Such willingness to sacrifice yourselves." Daehyun gazed out at the stars, seeing not empty space but the infinite possibilities that lay beyond them. "We learned long ago that sometimes peace can only be bought with war. The universe is not kind, Admiral. It doesn't care about our morals or our desires for harmony. But humans can be unkind right back when we need to be. The Galactic Council will never accept you as we have," Velta warned. "Your methods frighten them. They will call you dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to civilized society. Then they'll call us when the next impossible threat appears," Daehyun replied with a slight smile. "And we'll answer. Because that's what humans do. We survive. And we make sure others survive too, even if they don't like how we do it." As the human fleet prepared for its journey home, carrying with them the gratitude of an entire civilization and the knowledge that Earth was no longer alone in the universe, Dehaen made one final transmission to the Cytherian survivors. The galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than any of us imagined, he said, but it's also more beautiful and worth fighting for than we ever dreamed. Remember that when the next crisis comes, remember that somewhere out there are people willing to die so others can live. The human ships engaged their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the void, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species from. The small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, *the end*.